Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. Because every house has to have a foundation, it was laid strongly on my heart to start this podcast with a daily series. I am using the book, The Bible in 52 Weeks, which you can buy for men or for women. I invite you to read along with me. Welcome back. Today we start into Exodus. So I am reading Exodus 1 through 3. We are sometime after the events that we ended in Genesis. So now Joseph and all of his brothers and that whole generation has passed on. Their descendants are multiplying. There's a new king. So this king in Egypt never knew Joseph, did not know him personally. The things that he did, the things that were so important about Jacob, all of the people that cared about that are gone. So there's no personal attachment to the Israelites now. There's only this huge group of people who are not citizens that are living in the grasslands around the Nile Delta, and they're getting more and more and more, and they're flourishing. So they are set apart, not just in the land, again, remember, but by their cultural practices, their religious beliefs, and because Joseph has set them up for a long time here, they have not been part of this slavery model or the what we would more appropriately call a sharecropper situation. At some point, as we're getting into Exodus deeper into this first chapter, we see that they have been enslaved. They are part of the system. They are having to give their tribute into the Pharaoh. They're working at least partly to pay their taxes. And Pharaoh says in Exodus 1:10, he expresses that, here's this group of people and they are flourishing and we need to deal shrewdly with them. We need to be smart here because they are going to multiply and get out of hand, and they might join with other countries and cultures who hate us. And it's interesting here that he doesn't say they will join with those who hate us and completely take over Egypt. He says he's worried about them departing from the land. So there is definitely a value on Israel from what they can produce. There's an awareness that there is a huge number of them and they can produce a lot for the kingdom, and we want to keep that around. But there's also a huge number of them, and what if they decide that they don't want to play the games that we've set in place? What if they usurp our power? So Pharaoh decides that we're going to put them into hard labor. So instead of this nicer system of sharecropping where everybody lives and they only give in 20%, they set it up so that they've got taskmasters over Israel and they're doing hard labor. Well, the harder they push this group of people, the more they reproduce and expand their numbers. So that's not working. So Pharaoh goes they go to the Hebrew midwives, and we hear the story here of Shiphrah and Puah. They are part of the Israelite community. They are the midwives that are helping to birth women. They are also helping the Egyptian women. So these women fear God more than they fear Pharaoh. And so he tells them to kill if it's a boy that's born before mom sees it, kill it. and just say, oops, your baby died. If it's a girl, that's fine. This is his genius idea to do some population control here. But these two women do not. They refuse to do that. When he questions them, they actually tell him that, oh gosh, well, see, the Egyptian women are so weak. We're there. We have to help them birth their children. And honestly, I think this is a testament. There are diseases running through the cities, so Egyptian women are weaker and they need more help. I think it would be logical, as we see this in our own population, the weaker and sicker we become, the more we need to medicalize birth. These women say, Egyptian women, we could do what you're asking because we would be there. But the Hebrew women are so virile, they're so strong, they're so vigorous that the baby's already born by the time we get there, and they can already see that it's a boy and that it's living, so we can't very well just quietly kill it without anybody knowing. So it's kind of a fun way that they're able to tell the truth and stand up to unreasonable demands, things that would be against God's plan. And also reveal to us a little bit about a truth here, that we need to be living apart to maintain our health. The fertility is off the charts in the grasslands and in this culture that's set apart from the cities and intensive agriculture. It can't be checked. And here the midwives are saying that, the women just give birth. They don't really need any help, and so we can't carry out your orders. It's an interesting little piece of evidence that we can see being echoed over the state of fertility today. So this doesn't work. His next idea is that we're just going to command the Hebrew people that all the boys that they have from now on, if they have a boy, then they need to throw it into the Nile. So this is where we enter Moses. Moses is born in the house of Levi to a woman named Jochebed, and she is in love with her son. And as it's not understandable here, and she just can't throw him into the Nile. And presumably there are other people who are following this rule, but she holds on to him and hides him. And eventually she can't hide him any further, and she has to do something. And I love Jochebed here because she is a woman who she finally decides to follow the law, but she didn't do the intention. She followed the letter of the law without following the intention. So she takes this baby boy and she puts him in a basket and she, quote unquote, throws him into the Nile. So in effect, she did what she was told. Now, the idea was that we throw the baby in and it drowns, but she threw the baby in a basket in. And I think it's important to take a moment here. This is another spot where we have to look at, so we've got fertility in this story. We've also got emotional and spiritual health here. If Jochebed had held on to Moses as he grew, growing, becoming more and more obvious, more and more difficult to hide, burying a truth that is very difficult not to read, not to hear, not to see, is going to create death. Had she held on to Moses, it very well could have caused her death, and it definitely would have caused his death, because it eventually would have been obvious beyond any hiding. Her only option was to let him go. And that was the only way that she could live, and it was the only way that he could live. And of course, we have this moment where she lets him go, and he is carried into Egypt, just like Joseph, carried into Egypt away from his family without their active participation. Joseph is carried by the Midianite traders, and they go on to be pulled into the Pharaoh's household. So Moses, the basket, gets retrieved by Pharaoh's daughter. She is taken with him as well and decides that she's going to raise him. What an interesting turn of events that God has in place here. Moses was definitely chosen from early on, and she looks around, and Moses' sister is standing nearby, and she steps forward and says, "Hey, would you like me to go get you a nursemaid? I know somebody." She goes home and she gets Mom, and Mom gets to raise her own son, gets to nurse her own son, have him in her house in full view of the law. Here she is with her own son. Just not exactly the way that she thought it was going to be. So she is rewarded for letting go and trusting that God would take care of the situation, with her most fondest prayer request answered. Moses grows up in these chapters and he kills an overseer, so he's got special status here. He is an Egyptian. He's accepted into the Pharaoh's house. He's a powerful guy. And he sees an Egyptian overseer abusing some of his own people. He sees them abusing Hebrews, and he kills him. He runs away to Midian because Pharaoh's going to kill him. And when he gets there, he helps out some girls that are they're shepherds that are trying to take care of their flock. And they take him home, and he meets Jethro. Jethro is a Midianite. He is descended from Abraham. So the Midianites are descended from Abraham. They are related. They know the God of Abraham, but they are not living in the way that Israel is. So Moses is now out here, and he is learning to be a shepherd, and he is growing up, and he is learning tough lessons, and he is being trusted by Jethro with his flock, and Jethro marries him to his daughter Zipporah, and he's got a pretty important role. One day he's out with his flock, and he sees a bush that is on fire but is not being consumed. And because he's curious, he goes over, and God introduces himself. Just like we see where God personally introduces himself to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, here is God coming and giving Moses this birthright. Again, we haven't seen this part of the birthright arise since Jacob, where God is speaking directly to a human. And he speaks to Moses, and Moses, God love him, doesn't trust his abilities, and he basically fires back at God. So this is a wonderful character in the Bible. Moses shows us that we can question God. We can frustrate God. We can irritate God with all of our questions and our refusals. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I definitely have felt times where God is asking me to do something, and I try to get out of it in every way possible. But that's what Moses does here. He's like, well, but I can't speak, and I have to wash my hair, and there's a million different things that he tries to dissuade God from giving Moses this task to go back and lead Israel out of Egypt. And finally, after he has exhausted all of his excuses, he finally is like, but can't you pick anybody else? I think it's great what you're doing, but go pick anyone else but me. And God promises at the end of this that he is going to make it more profitable for the Pharaoh to let Israel go than it is to keep them. He is going to make this a thing that is so easy for Pharaoh to let go, and Moses just needs to trust him. Really cool introduction here to Moses. and a lot of important clues about what our health is when it's rooted in God. I pray that God is blessing you today and that He brings you back tomorrow to study with me. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.